And welcome back to the Daily Wrap, everybody. It's time for Political Potluck. And you know the drill, veteran viewers. Political Potluck is where each of us brings a story to a party, just like bringing a dish to potluck dinner. Okay, let's start with you, Lisa Jandovitz.
Well, my story today is there's been a lot of talk this week with Sports Illustrated's annual swimsuit edition coming out, celebrating beautiful women in bikinis. You're smiling quite a lot, Rick.
Annual edition.
Beautiful women in bikinis for men to look at.
Is Crumpton on the cover?
And well, maybe you're inside.
You were actually 2008, right?
And
you actually speechless. You think it can be done? Speechless.
Bang!
I'm a minister.
Anyway, we keep interrupting you.
And that's
Sorry,
okay.
Lisa.
That's okay. Why just celebrate women's bodies? Why can't there be a male Sports Illustrated?
They're on
swimsuit
Sports
edition
Illustrated every
with
month.
gorgeous men with ripped abs, kind of like Magic Mike. And why not? Why is it always women are looked at in that way? Women are looked at as sexual objects and objects of beauty, but why not for male?
So you want Channing Tatum on the cover?
I want Channing Tatum. I want the whole
But
Magic
you
Mike.
get that every month.
Where?
You don't.
On the cover of Sports Illustrated. They don't
No,
normally
it's
put
different.
girls
That
on
is
there.
Hats and
different. That's
uniforms
tot-
on there.
Rick,
no.
it's not overtly sexualized.
Exactly. Did you
It's
Well,
the
I
men
wouldn't
are
know,
on the
'cause
cover
they're
for
men,
their
but-
athletic prowess.
Right. What is
And
that?
that's
There's
what the
nothing
difference
athletic.
is.
Exactly.
And here's the thing that I have a problem with. Sports Illustrated is not just for grown men. There are little boys,
Yes.
little girls who read Sports Illustrated. They're aspiring sports people, and they get an idea of women's value that's
Look at Joe.
That's
Joe's
really
watching the
just-
graphic on the screen.
and Joe's drooling. But when your little girl, Joe, grows up and is wants to play soccer, she'll have serious cognitive dissonance when she looks at that cover. No, have you ever been a little girl, Rick?
No.
No.
Strangely.
Trust
Although
me.
I've been accused of it. I've been
One
accused of it.
positive though.
Little girls have cognitive dissonance over this sexualizing of women, especially in a sports context. It's just very odd.
It's kind of, but the one
I'm
positive I have to
serious.
say that
It's hurtful.
that Sports Illustrated did do was that they did put plus size models
Yes.
inside.
Yeah, I thought
now,
that's what you were
this is
going to
good.
talk
no,
about.
but the thing is that actually there is one model that's in an ad. She's a size 16. And she's beautiful. She's a true plus size model. The plus size model that Sports Illustrated put in, if you look at the picture. They say she's a size 12 and she's a plus size model. She does not look like a plus
You
size
didn't get a
model.
fine print. She's a 1.2, not a 12. There was a
I
decimal
was
point
like,
in there.
plus size
that
where?
is a
It's
very
a
fair
baby
comment.
We
step.
have to get
I looked at
to
it.
our next
I had the same
potluck,
reaction.
but I'll end it with you'll never believe this, but the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue is always the highest selling issue of the year.
Really?
Of
I'm
course.
shocked.
Yes. So
I'm shocked.
who's got the next
A little
casserole here?
TNA.
Who's serving up? Who's
What?
Unger?
Oh, it's me?
Yeah, Ricky.
Okay, so
Cough it up.
I entitled this Meet the New Obamacare, same as this. Oh, I don't remember what I entitled it. You probably heard yesterday that Congress shockingly voted once again to repeal Obamacare. Who would have thought, right? What is this, 68th time they've
So
done
it's
it?
gone? It's over?
So,
it's done?
No, it's not
Oh,
gone. But what's
okay.
amazing
Don't get
is
excited.
a couple, Senator Hatch and a few of his friends gave us the latest, greatest replacement, which is pretty much the same replacement they've been offering all along, and it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Well, there are some things in there that are interesting. They cut the subsidies, if you like that. They do let you keep it for your kids at 26, but you know what the problem is? They're pretending that people with pre-existing conditions can still be insured under their plan without there being an individual mandate. Guess what, folks? In the history of humanity, nobody has figured out how to get insurance companies to provide insurance to people with pre-existing health problems unless there's an individual mandate, because otherwise the prices would be way too high.
Do you think this has been a success for the president, net? Because not all of it has been obviously
Right.
implemented because it was pushed after
Right.
the election. Still an incomplete in your mind? Because we heard about subsidies going up
Yeah.
and premiums going up and losing your doctor, and that was a big, big...
The honest answer that nobody wants to hear is that we haven't had enough time to find out. There are some things that have been successful, some things that haven't, which is to be expected, you know, and some things that the jury's still out on. The biggest problem we have is that because of the way Congress is behaving, things that we know should be fixed, like any major law has things that have to be fixed, they won't fix them.
Will the next presidential campaign
Yes.
feature repealing Obamacare from the GOP side, or have they given up on it?
It certainly will from the GOP side, unless the public opinion changes, which it could. It could. It's not getting better yet, and it may never get better. But as long as public opinion is where it is, the GOP is always going to campaign against it.
And on that note, we'll leave it there. Mitt Romney isn't running this time, obviously, so he won't have to dance around that issue anymore, which was quite tricky with Romneycare. Anyway, coming up next, more of the best part of the Daily Wrap. It is political potluck, including mine. This is a Daily Wrap on Newsmax TV from not too cold New York City. And welcome back to the show, everybody. Right now, we're talking about our favorite stories of the day. Jenny, what are you serving up?
Okay, so after the attacks last month in Paris, obviously a lot of security was tightened around the Paris streets and malls and synagogues especially. But now they've decided they will not let film or TV crews film action scenes on the streets of Paris. Keep in mind, this is an iconic setting where films like The Bourne Identity and Taken and Lucy have been filmed. But the fear is that either terrorists will attack actors thinking that they're really...
And welcome back to the show, everybody. By the way, just to tag out of our last segment, 1921 was when Radio Shack was founded, and we kind of talked around the table, like 1921, what could people possibly be buying from Radio Shack in 1921? And all the geniuses around the table decided that they were buying radios, and that's why it was called that. So, yes, you come here for all of your information.
Mystery
Yeah,
solved.
right? Crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Prompter. We got some good news from the Labor Department today. Employers added 257,000 jobs in January. Yes, that beat expectations. Meanwhile, the unemployment ticked up from 5.6% to 5.7%, mainly due to more people deciding to look for jobs. Hey, maybe I'll go look for a job after all. Look at that. Everybody must be impressed, right? Yet. Gallup CEO and Chairman Jim Clifton said this, quote, "There's no other way to say this. The official unemployment rate amounts to a big lie." Why? Mr. Clifton explains on Fox News.
The number of full-time jobs, and that's what everybody wants, as a percent of the total population is the lowest it's ever been. That's what that number doesn't show. The consequences are of that. Well, there was at the recession, we lost 13 million jobs. Only 3 million have come back.
Happy guy. So Clifton argues the actual real unemployment rate is much, much higher, and he's right. And the federal government, yeah, they know it. Now, there are two unemployment numbers, okay? Everybody sit down and try to grab all of this, okay? The main number and the U6 number, which is the total unemployed, plus marginally attached workers, plus total employed part-time for economic reasons, plus, or excuse me, as a percent of all civilian labor force, plus marginally attached workers. Rick Unger, you work at Forbes. What the heck does all this mean? And should the government use the U6 number, which, by the way, is currently at 11%?
Close to 11.5%. You can make the argument both ways. There's a reason that they don't use that number, and that's because it doesn't take into account people who are leaving the workforce voluntarily. We've got a baby boomers generation retiring now, so there's a larger number of people who would not be seeking employment even in the best of times. This is what throws that number off a little bit. He is right, though, when he says the number that we rely on, which is at about 5.8, it went up a little bit
It's 7
today.
now, yeah, 5.7.
But which, by the way, is actually good news that it went up, because it means that more people who were not in the labor
looking for
force
work.
are coming back in. But he's right. There are more unemployed than that. What we have trouble determining, though, is are they doing it because they've just given up on looking for a job, or because they got old? To me, what's important is that you keep the comparison the same. You can use either number. As long as it's coming down, it's a good thing.
You know what always confuses me? That when I see 5.7%, I say, boy, that's pretty
That's
good.
not bad.
Right. But I don't know how many of those are part-time
Right.
and full-time.
Right.
And that's a big, big
It's,
difference.
it's a very fair point, and even within that, we have a higher part-time number right now, which makes you think, well, that's not good. But at the same time, we actually know that more people want part-time. So it,
Or they
it
can't
can
get the work though as well.
Well, there are those. There are those who would like full-time and can't get it. That's
or those
right.
that are also severely underemployed.
Right,
They might
yes.
be engineers that are
And then there's
working
the-
way outside of their field.
That's right. And then the biggest issue is even those who are getting employment finally, are they being paid a decent wage?
Jenny?
Well, you know, there's a big buzz in the business world. There's a skill gap in our country. We're going through a huge transition with technology. So, you know, education-wise and business-wise, there are tons of tech jobs. Tons of them out there, and they can't find enough people to fill them.
You're right about that. That's
Because
right.
people don't have the education they need yet. And so, you know, they're trying to bring in people who have the right skills. They can't find the right people with the right skills. And then once, you know, if people do get into the job position, oftentimes they have to leave because they can't keep up with it. They're not doing the job well. So, you know, I think one of the things we can't forget about is the educational skill gap in our country and really needing to start catching up with that.
No, you're right about that. I have a cousin, for instance, who actually was rejected for a job recently in the exact change lane on the Garden State Parkway. How hard can this
How
be?
not going to be?
Right?
You know what else is in? And Jenny, you're absolutely right about that.
No one
But-
got that joke, by the way.
Yeah,
It
it,
was
wasn't,
funny.
it went right over. Yeah.
Because I said it so seriously. I said
Well,
Didn't want to laugh at
we
your
need somebody in the exact change.
You know what else is happening, though, that people have to keep in mind? Because of this recession we've had, we think everything is all about jobs not being available. For years, we've been hearing that the day was coming when machinery would take the place of people. Guess what? It's here. This problem is not going away with a new
Right.
president or a better economy.
Right.
We are still going to have this problem.
We see robots now that
Yeah.
actually in warehouses can take deliveries,
That's
probably
right.
with Amazon,
Absolutely
and,
right.
and ship them where you don't even need a human being. Or whenever you call somebody now, the first 10 things you have to go through are voice prompts
not
by
a
a
person.
computer and not a person.
That's right.
Exactly. You're no longer plugging
you
in
can
the
go to
wire.
restaurants today and order with the machine, not through a person.
Exactly. And we'll have to leave it there. So that's a wrap, everybody. And thanks so much to Lisa and Ricky and Jenny. I'm Joey. We hope you have a great weekend. It should be a good one. Without football for the first time in 23 weeks. That's depressing. Anyway, I am Joe Concha. This is the Daily Wrap from New York. Good night, everybody.